Today we'll be exploring a complex and deeply troubling topic: racism in the United States. Specifically, we're going to examine the 10 most racist states in America. This isn't about pointing fingers, but about shedding light on systemic issues that continue to affect millions of people. We'll cover income disparities, racially motivated crimes, social injustices, housing inequalities, and the historical roots of racism in each of these states. It's a heavy but necessary conversation. Please subscribe to our channel and help us create more content. Let's dive in. Our journey through America's troubled racial landscape takes us next to Alabama, a state synonymous with the civil rights struggle. Alabama's long history of racial segregation and civil rights struggles has left a lasting imprint on the state. Known for pivotal moments like the Montgomery bus boycott and the Selma marches, Alabama's racist legacy continues to manifest in economic and social disparities. Black families in Alabama earn only about 60% of what white families earn, reflecting deep income inequality. Racially motivated crimes are disturbingly common, with FBI data consistently ranking Alabama among states with high rates of hate crimes, including racially charged assaults and property damage. Social injustices include frequent racial profiling and police brutality targeting Black residents. Housing inequality is glaring. Predominantly Black neighborhoods often have underfunded schools, limited access to healthcare, and poor infrastructure. Historically, redlining and discriminatory housing policies trapped Black families in poverty, creating cycles that persist today. We go next to Mississippi, a state perpetually haunted by its past. Mississippi has a dark history of lynchings and violent suppression of Black civil rights. During the Jim Crow era, Black Mississippians faced unimaginable brutality, and the effects of this oppression linger. Today, Black households earn less than half of what white households do, one of the worst income disparities in the nation. Hate crimes, including vandalism, harassment, and violence, remain prevalent, with the state consistently reporting higher than average incidents of racially motivated crimes. Housing discrimination is another significant issue, with Black families often relegated to neighborhoods lacking basic amenities, such as reliable public transportation and quality schools. The state's refusal to adequately address systemic racism has entrenched these disparities, making progress slow and difficult. Ignoring racism doesn't make it disappear. It just allows it to fester and grow in the shadows. We need to shine a light on what's happening in Mississippi and demand better for our entire nation. Our next stop takes us to Louisiana, a state steeped in a complex and often painful history. Louisiana's legacy of racism can be traced back to its history of slavery, Black codes, and segregation. The income gap between Black and white families is stark, with Black households earning about 54% of what white households earn. Unemployment rates for Black residents are also significantly higher. The state's hate crime statistics are troubling, with frequent reports of racially motivated violence and intimidation. Social injustices include police brutality, especially in cities like Baton Rouge and New Orleans, where racial profiling is a well-documented issue. Housing inequality stems from decades of redlining and discriminatory lending practices, leaving Black neighborhoods in a state of disrepair and neglect. These areas often lack flood protection and are disproportionately affected by natural disasters, exacerbating economic disparities. Our exploration of America's complex relationship with race takes us tonight to Arkansas, a state forever linked to one of the most pivotal moments in the fight for desegregation, the Little Rock Nine. Arkansas's history includes violent resistance to desegregation, most famously the Little Rock Nine, who faced hostility and threats while integrating Central High School in 1957. This legacy of racism persists in modern forms. Black families in Arkansas earn significantly less than white families, and access to high-paying jobs remains limited for minorities. Racially motivated crimes, including vandalism, assault, and harassment, are disturbingly frequent. Social injustices include systemic disparities in education, where schools in predominantly Black neighborhoods are often underfunded. Housing discrimination remains a critical issue, with landlords and banks frequently denying Black residents fair access to housing loans or rentals. These challenges create a cycle of poverty and limited opportunity for Black Arkansans. Tonight, we turn our attention to Georgia, a battleground in the fight for voting rights. Georgia, often seen as a progressive state in the South, still grapples with systemic racism. Black families earn about 67% of what white families do, and the unemployment rate for Black residents is significantly higher. The state has a long history of voter suppression targeting Black communities, from poll taxes and literacy tests to modern-day purges of voter rolls. Hate crimes in Georgia remain a pressing concern, with frequent reports of harassment and violence targeting Black and Asian communities. Housing inequality is another major issue, as Black neighborhoods face higher rates of eviction and foreclosures. Historically, redlining and discriminatory zoning laws have confined Black families to areas with fewer resources, perpetuating cycles of poverty. Our journey into the heart of America's racial divide takes us now to South Carolina, a state forever marked by the specter of the Confederacy. South Carolina's history of slavery and segregation has left a deep imprint on the state. Today, Black families earn only about 57% of what white families earn, and the poverty rate among Black residents is alarmingly high. Hate crimes, including racially motivated violence, vandalism, and harassment, are common. Social injustices include unequal access to health care and frequent racial profiling by law enforcement. Black residents are more likely to be stopped, searched, and arrested than their white counterparts. Housing discrimination remains widespread, with Black families often confined to neighborhoods with inadequate infrastructure, underfunded schools, and limited economic opportunities. Our next stop on this journey through America's struggle with race takes us to Texas, a state with a long and complicated history. Despite its diverse population, Texas struggles with significant racial disparities. Black and Hispanic families earn far less than white families, with income gaps that highlight systemic barriers to economic mobility. Historically, Texas was a hotspot for segregation and racially motivated violence, including lynchings and anti-Mexican violence. Hate crimes are a significant issue, particularly in urban areas where racially motivated attacks on Black and Hispanic residents are frequently reported. Housing discrimination is rampant, with minorities often facing higher rates of eviction, substandard living conditions, and limited access to affordable housing. These inequalities are rooted in a history of redlining and discriminatory housing policies that continue to affect minority communities. Missouri's racial disparities are stark. The median income for Black households is significantly lower than that of white households, and Black residents are more likely to face unemployment. Missouri's racist history includes the infamous Dred Scott decision, which denied citizenship to Black Americans. In recent years, the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson brought global attention to the state's racial inequalities. Hate crimes and housing discrimination remain critical issues, with many Black residents living in impoverished, segregated communities. Now we travel to Kentucky, a state often associated with rolling hills, bluegrass music, and the Kentucky Derby. Kentucky has a long history of systemic racism, from segregation to the exploitation of Black labor. Today, Black families earn about 61% of what white families earn. Hate crimes, including racially motivated violence, are reported at an alarming rate. Social injustices include racial profiling and disparities in education access. Housing segregation remains entrenched, with many Black families confined to underfunded areas with limited opportunities for upward mobility. We turn our attention now to Tennessee, a state often celebrated for its musical heritage, from the blues of Memphis to the country twang of Nashville. Tennessee tops our list due to its persistent racial disparities and history of systemic racism. Black families earn less than 60% of what white families earn, and unemployment rates among minorities are disproportionately high. The state's racist history includes violent suppression of Black voters and lynchings. Hate crimes remain a pressing issue, with frequent reports of harassment and physical attacks on minorities. Housing discrimination is rampant, with Black residents often facing barriers to homeownership and being confined to substandard living conditions. Thank you for joining us for this important discussion. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation about how we can build a more equitable society. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content. See you next time.